I've said this multiple times this year, but I really don't think people understand how much power and responsibility is about to be handed to the community. It looks like even the very parameters of the chain will be at least partially in our hands in just weeks. Ready? Let's go. Today, we're going to discuss the Cardano Foundation unveiling a new plan for all of us to help decide the chain parameters, Cardano Summit Dubai news, more of the Gensler tapes, and Chair Jerome Powell giving up the secret plan to phone pranksters. If you immediately suspected that the tattoo on this dude's chest might be Ouroboros, or if you're finding value in these videos each weekday, please consider delegating to the Army of Spies stake pool, ticker AOS. Well, it looks like the Cardano Foundation is not waiting any longer. The dawn of Voltaire, self-governance, is upon us. And what they're doing is really interesting. So the Cardano Foundation wants to have an on-chain poll of stake pool operators about certain parameters and values that apply to the chain. We've talked about these parameters a lot of times on this channel, but one of the very important ones is the K parameter. So the K parameter determines effectively how many fully saturated pools we're striving to have on the chain. So the K parameter has been set at K equals 500 for a long time, and we've all kind of known that we were going to change to K equals 1,000 at some point. In fact, this was supposed to happen years ago, and it hasn't quite happened. The thing that it will effectively accomplish is cutting in half the saturation amount of all the pools. So all the pools now that are fully saturated, they'll be oversaturated by 100%, basically, if they're fully saturated now. So this will change things pretty drastically, and it'll mean that a lot more pools can be competitive. Maybe, one of the things we hope for is that a lot more pools can be competitive if they only have to achieve, half of the current value to be fully saturated. And you hope that this is going to lead to double the number of pools that are, actually making blocks or actually competitive, that kind of thing. So we don't really know. We don't really know exactly what's going to happen. People can model this out, and a lot of people have modeled this out and demanded K equals 1,000, but we won't really know until it happens. I think it's a step that we've all known for a long time that we have to take. There are other things too, like the min pool fee, and all of these things are pretty much hotly debated. And you'll find, reasonable arguments on both sides of all these different issues. But I think these are things that we have to decide as a community. They're not things that any one entity in Cardano can decide any longer. We're well past that phase when the three founding entities can kind of just get together and decide things like this. The K parameter and min pool fee, these issues are too big for the founding entities to decide on their own. And we've finally gotten to the point where all of this is going to be put into our hands. And I know what you're thinking. You heard me say it's going to be a poll of the stake pool operators. That's not the whole community. But the Cardano Foundation has found an interesting way to make it about the whole community. So if you come down here, they explain that they are going to do this starting in the first 2 weeks of May. They're going to run an initial test on the pre-production test net, and then they're going to have the actual poll on the main net in the second half of May. And here's where it involves everybody in the community, basically. So they're going to publish the poll. Then they're going to have the SPOs cast their ballots on these different parameters and values. Then there's going to be a full 2 epochs for all the delegators of those stake pools to redelegate if they don't like the way their stake pool voted. Then there will be a snapshot, and then the weight of delegation to the various stake pools will be taken into account when they value the votes of the different stake pools. So, of course, if you have some stake pool that, some stake pool operator that say has, 6 or 10 or 20 stake pools, of course, they may not want K to go to 1,000 because that means all of their stake pools have to be split, and they'll look even worse because if they have 6 stake pools now, basically to accomplish the same thing, they'd have to go to 12 stake pools. There's a lot of different variables here. Obviously, if min pool fee changes, then if min fee changes for the pools, then that might change, because part of the inducement for a lot of these stake pool operators to have so many pools is that they're getting the min fee every single epoch. So they make more money by having more pools. I personally don't think that's a good deal for the delegators in a lot of cases, which is why I'm a single pool operator. The Army of Spies pool is just one pool for a reason. We would actually make more money if we had multiple pools, of course, but we don't do that because we don't think it's good for the decentralization of the network. And this is your chance. If you feel likewise, this is your chance to redelegate to pools that vote that you in a manner that you think is consistent with decentralization. Whatever you think, we don't even really know what the poll is going to ask. But once we do, and you see the way your stake pool casts their ballot, you can make the decision. Do you think the way they're voting is good for decentralization in the network? Or do you think they're voting according to their own pocketbook? Are they voting for their own pecuniary interests? Because a lot of stake pools will. And they'll come up with all kinds of rationalizations. They'll have all kinds of explanations about how their vote is actually altruistic. The way they're voting is actually good for the network. They'll have all kinds of explanations. But deep down, you'll know, and I'll know, that they are voting against decentralization, because decentralization might in some cases be against their pocketbook. It might cut against their pecuniary interests, their economic interests. They may make more money if we say don't go, or they might think that they're going to make more money, at least if we don't go from K equals 500 to K equals 1,000. If we were to say get rid of the min fee, maybe they would make less money. So there's going to be a lot of discussion, a lot of different arguments are going to be made on both sides of all these issues. I hope you'll remember that some of these stake pool operators may have vested economic interests in preventing the increased decentralization of our network. And I hope, however you feel about all these issues, you'll delegate during this period in a manner consistent with the decentralization of our networks. I think at the end of the day, that is the most important thing. The most important thing about our network is this decentralization element. There are a lot of other important things, but really the most important thing about crypto and any real ecosystem in crypto is the decentralization thing. So I urge you, when this happens, vote in favor of decentralization by redelegating during this period. While Cardano is definitely about running the chain, it might also be about partying at the Burj Khalifa in Dubai. The Cardano Summit 2023 tickets are on sale now. Looks like it'll be the 2nd through the 4th of November. I have a sneaking suspicion that some people are going to go to this event and they're going to have the time of their lives. I have a strange suspicion that people are going to have a fantastic time in Dubai. That will probably be the case. I don't even really know what's going to be happening. I've heard rumblings and rumors of some kind of event out in the desert, and that the main event might be at the Burj Khalifa. But if it's in Dubai and it's the Cardano Summit, I have a strange feeling it might be a fantastic time. So I'm sure some of you will go to this. I hope for those of you who go, you have a fantastic time. But if you're interested, just be aware the tickets looks like they are on sale now. Oh man, guys. Oh man. The Gensler tapes, they keep coming and they keep getting better. So you probably remember what this is. But if you haven't seen the previous videos we did about this, Gary Gensler, the current chair of the SEC, was a professor at MIT, and he taught a course on crypto where he talked a lot about whether or not certain cryptos were security. So for this next clip, this is very interesting, especially if you watch the recent House Financial Services Committee hearings where Congressman McHenry asked him very pointedly and repeatedly whether or not Ethereum was a security. And Gary Gensler absolutely, obstinately refused to give him a straight answer. He talked about all kinds of things, but he absolutely would not give him a straight answer or any answer at all about whether or not Ethereum, Ether, was a security. But listen to what he had to say about this in 2018.
We'll talk a lot about initial coin offerings and are they securities, are they not? But I would note, in terms of market value, probably 3/4 of this space has already been determined by the Securities and Exchange Commission not to be a security. Bitcoin's 54%. Ether's about, 15 points or something like that.
Oh no, Gary. Oh no. It looks like those same congressmen who were grilling you last week, the next time you see them, they are going to have these videos and they're going to ask you, hey, were you or were you not an expert on crypto back in 2018 when you taught a crypto course at MIT and you said the SEC had already determined that 3/4 of the crypto space were not securities, and then you named Bitcoin and Ethereum. And of course, his retort is going to be something like, well, I was an expert on crypto generally, but not crypto law. I'm not an attorney. He'll say something like that, of course. And then he'll talk about how everything's changed now, everything's different. All of a sudden, even though he thought Ethereum had already been determined not to be a security by the SEC, by the time he gets into the SEC, all of a sudden it is a security. But this is going to be very, very awkward for you, Chairman Gensler. Speaking of the SEC, it looks like Coinbase did something very smart on the PR front today. They released this video, which they sort of characterized as a Wells response. They've gotten a Wells notice from the SEC, which basically says, hey, we're going to initiate an enforcement action against you. Go ahead and defend yourself. Tell us why what you've done is not a violation. And, they're going to do all the normal legal stuff and defend themselves and they're making all kinds of legal arguments as to why they haven't actually violated the law. But they did something else, something really smart on the PR front. And that's release this Wells response, as they're characterizing it. This was really smart because they understand that a big part of this battle is the public image battle. They want to come off as squeaky clean, all-American, just a good American tech business. And look at them here. They do look squeaky clean. We got Paul Graywall and Brian Armstrong. Look at Brian. Paul Graywall does a lot of the talking in the video, and he always does a great job. He does a fantastic job in these kinds of presentations. Look at Brian Armstrong in this video, though. He looks like he's about to recruit you into the Boy Scouts. Look at the innocent look on his face. Paul Graywall is the chief legal officer. He has seen too many legal battles already in his life to possibly affect this like very innocent baby-like look that Brian Armstrong has on his face here. But he looks like he's getting ready to induct you into the Boy Scouts or something. The most innocent possible look. But I mean, in the video, they do a great job of a sort of appealing to this very good boy type public image, and they tell the SEC, hey, we're prepared to defend ourselves in court, and they make it clear they're going to put up a very good legal defense if the SEC takes them to court. But they say it doesn't have to be that way. We can work this out. We're prepared to come to your office any day you want. Paul Graywall does a great job of making it clear that they're speaking in earnest when they say that they will happily come to the SEC's office and hash everything out. But I think they say that knowing that the SEC doesn't want to work it out. They don't want to hash it out. They just want to crush as much of crypto as possible. And Coinbase being such a big on and off ramp for crypto, they especially want to crush crypto. They don't want for Coinbase to have a path forward. They just want to shut down those on and off ramps because they want to crush crypto. So remember, if anybody from the SEC asks you, remember, Brian Armstrong and Paul Graywall are a bunch of good boys. They're good boys out there doing good things. They're certainly not out there slinging a bunch of dirty, dirty security coins. That is not what's happening. Unfortunately, Zero Hedge is reporting they got our boy. They got Fed Chairman Jerome Powell. Those same pranksters that got Christine Lagarde, they tricked her into thinking she was talking to President Zelensky of Ukraine. They tricked Powell into thinking he was talking to President Zelensky. And they got him to say the following: the market is already pricing in 2 more quarter percentage point rate hikes. We'll look around after we make those 2 and we'll say, should we do any more? And then the question will be, how long do we keep rates at this level? And I think we'll keep them there for quite some time. So Zero Hedge says this reportedly took place in January. So in January, when he thought he was talking to Zelensky, he said, yeah, we're definitely going to hike 2 more times. And then we'll look around and say, should we hike more? And then at that point, the question will just be how long we keep rates at that level. And he said, I think we keep them there for quite some time. Obviously, quite a bit more forthcoming when he thought he was talking to Zelensky than he has been in any of his, public appearances, like right after the FOMC meetings. But this kind of makes sense to me. Of course, you're going to be a little more careful about your phrasing and your word choice when you're talking to the entire world. So, I mean, I really can't blame the guy, but this is quite a bit more direct. I don't think this is really going to surprise too many people, but this is quite a bit more direct in terms of what they're up to. In any case, I hope you had a great week. If you're in the Northern Hemisphere, I hope you're gearing up for a great spring weekend, or if you're not, I hope you're getting ready for a great weekend anyways, and I'll talk to you soon.